Security guard makes eye contact with a student, grabs her before it's too late. When the security guard made eye contact with a student, he suddenly realized that something very dangerous was about to happen. He knew he had to act fast to change the course of history before it was too late. An average school day is usually a mundane affair. Wake up, sit in class, chat with your friends for a bit, go home, then repeat the next day. However, there are some days at school which you'll always remember forever. This is certainly the case of the security guard Roger Karen, who had worked as a protection officer at Pascack Hills High School for a good few years. He was a naturally protective man, and so caring for the students at his school made him happy. He bonded with a lot of his students, and they would often bump fists when walking down the hallways. He loved his job very much. April 17, 2018, was just an average day at Pascack Hills High School. It was a Tuesday, when students had settled into the week, and everything was going as it normally does. Half a day had already gone, and lunchtime was just coming to an end. Students only had a few minutes to get to their next class, so the hallways were bustling. Officer Roger Karen was roaming one of the corridors as he usually does at this time, wandering the halls looking out for any trouble or anyone that needed help. He was friendly with a lot of the students and teachers at the school, and he took his job very seriously. It was his duty to keep everyone safe, and he would do anything to make sure he did just that. However, during this Tuesday lunchtime, Roger was going to be forced to do something he never thought he would have to do. When strolling down one of the hallways, he saw one of his students acting rather strangely. When he first saw her, she was around 10 meters away, but as she got closer, he noticed that she's stumbling towards him with her hands around her neck. He immediately knew something wasn't quite right, but he wasn't sure what or how he could help. As she stumbled closer and closer, his heart started pounding as he started to realize that she needed help, and she needed help fast. None of the other students had noticed, so Roger knew he needed to do something. A few seconds after he first saw her stumbling, Roger came to the realization that she was choking. She was stumbling towards him even more frantically now, and then Roger saw that she was turning blue. Her hands were around her neck, and she was struggling to breathe. She had a dazed look on her face, as though she was about to pass out, but luckily Roger had noticed how she was struggling. He ran over to her and immediately saw that she needed someone to help her. Roger's instinct kicked in. His job was about to be put to the test in a way he would never have imagined. This situation was now a matter of life or death, and if Roger wanted it to be a good outcome, he needed to act now. Let's rewind to find out how this student came to find herself in this frightening situation. Well, her name is Sarah Bazzini, a bright 18-year-old student who was in her last year of high school at the time of the incident. She is a smart young woman, with a great future ahead of her according to her teachers and fellow students, but without the help of Officer Roger, her hopes and dreams could have been taken away from her in seconds. The ordeal began when Sarah was walking down the hallway to her next class. She had been rather busy during lunch, so she hardly had time to eat. So on her way, she decided she would eat and walk to save time to ensure she wasn't late. However, this was when disaster struck. Sarah couldn't have prepared herself for what was about to happen. As she took the final bite of her food and swallowed it down, she started to choke. She tried to take a few gasps of air, but she couldn't breathe. She was terrified. She started to panic. As she stumbled down the hallway, she wrapped her hands around her neck not knowing what to do. Fear consumed her body. Was this the end? Sarah was in a state of panic. However much she tried, she simply couldn't breathe. She felt her body starting to seize up. All she could think in her head was that she needed help. But no one was noticing that she was in trouble. Why was no one helping her? Then she noticed someone running towards her. It was the security officer Roger, who she had spoken to a few times. She saw him approach her in a panic and wrap his arms around her stomach from behind. Finally, someone had come to her rescue. As Officer Roger grabbed her from behind, she could see everyone else start to notice what was going on. She could see the panic in their eyes. Officer Roger began to perform the Heimlich maneuver on her, leaning her forward and thrusting his arms under her abdomen to try and expel whatever was caught in her throat-stomach. He repeated it over and over, doing whatever he could possibly do to help. Eventually, the chewed-up piece of food was spat out of her mouth and Sarah took a huge gasp of air. She could finally breathe. Her mind restored full consciousness and a feeling of relief rushed through her body. It was the scariest feeling in the world for Sarah to not be able to breathe. She turned around and saw Officer Roger with his arm on her shoulder, ensuring she kept her balance and that she was okay. She was definitely okay now. He saved her life. The whole ordeal is a bit of a blur for Sarah, she explained. The last thing she fully remembers is walking down the hallway on the way to class, and then suddenly she is being comforted by Officer Roger and all of the concerned students looking on. There was so much adrenaline rushing through her body that the incident remains a hazy memory to her. All that she was sure of is that she's thankful to be alive. And especially grateful to her hero who saved her. Their story hit the news too, with reporters wanting to know exactly what had happened in those moments. CCTV footage also shows the whole incident, proving to Sarah just how amazing Officer Roger is. Now months later, Sarah and Roger have a very special bond and continue to be friends since they've shared such a life-changing experience. Who knows whether Sarah would still be alive if it weren't for Roger, so she counts each and every one of her blessings every day.